And Mexico. It's 25 to the hour. Retailers are concerned the federal government's new workplace laws could cost thousands of jobs around the country. The Fair Work regulations, which came in on January the 1st, have scrapped 4,000 awards and replaced them with 122 awards and 10 national employment standards. The Retailers Association has predicted mass carnage in the small business sector and the loss of at least 3,000 jobs. Scott Driscoll, National Executive Director of the Retailers Association, joins us on the line now. Hi, Scott.
Good afternoon.
Why do you think these new laws could cost thousands of jobs?
I think there's a very strong basis for that to be a very conservative figure, by the way. What we are seeing, particularly in states like Queensland and New South Wales, where the effect of these awards will be major and massive increases to the penalty rates on weekends and evening work. If you're a retailer, for example, with 20 staff trading across a 7-day week, you're going to be hit with $100,000 extra on your wages bill, and that is going to cost jobs.
How did you calculate that figure?
It's a very simple process. You just simply look at the increase on wages, on penalty rates, etc., and it's staring you in the face. I mean, the government is well aware of this, and I think that is the shame of it, that they do know what this is going to cost. They've seen our submissions, and yet we're still going down the path.
Do their costings match your costings?
I'm sure they would. This is something that the Industrial Commission and certainly the government is well aware of.
Could those small business owners keep the staff on and simply pass the cost of the penalties and the increased wages on to customers?
Well, look, this would be the unfair alternative on consumers and Australian families, and I think either way we are going to see the community paying for this, and it's either going to be through job losses or it's going to be through increases to prices to mums and dads right around the country.
Julia Gillard says in the long-term business will benefit. She says over 10 years the benefits flowing to business in terms of reduced compliance costs are in the order of billions of dollars. And she said, she made that quote referring to figures compiled by Access Economics.
Yeah, look, I think the Deputy Prime Minister is making these comments, and it was interesting that the location of where she made these comments was at a very big business that is a national has national capacity. What we're talking about, though, is an impact on small business, and small business, quite frankly, has not had the education, has not had the information. We're seeing a political barnstorm over the next 7 days, apparently, but that does not substitute for actually passing on the knowledge to the sector that is going to actually make sure that they're not fined on an individual basis up to $33,000 for making an inadvertent mistake under what is now a very complex set of rules and legislation.
Do you expect there to be a little slack with those fines with a new set of laws that perhaps it may be hard to comply with them in the first instance?
I don't know that I expect it. I certainly would implore the government to heed that call. We made that call over the last week. We've had agreement from the opposition. I was with Tony Abbott and the Shadow Small Business Minister Bruce Bilson yesterday, and they've made that same commitment. They've called on the government with us to do this, but as yet we have not seen that sort of commitment coming from Julia Gillard or the Rudd government.
We're talking to Scott Driscoll this afternoon on Summer Drive. It's 20 to the hour. Scott is with the Retailers Association, and they're very concerned about the new federal government workplace relations laws, which have come in of January the 1st. They're called the Fair Work regulations, and they're concerned that they could lead to up to 3,000, possibly more jobs being lost in the small business sector in retail. Scott, you say that you're not getting many answers from the federal government on these laws. What do you want to know from them?
Well, I think the government actually needs to commit and deliver on compliance, regulation, information. I think what we're seeing at the moment is a lot of noise about the spin. What we're not seeing is much substance. In fact, as an industrial organisation, as a peak industry body, we're simply not even getting straight answers out of the new Fair Work Australia body that is charged with communicating these changes to industry. Now, if we as a peak industry body can't get that sort of clarity, what hope does mum and dad down in Main Street Australia running their little business have of being actually aware of what they're now obliged under these new laws, these very pro-union laws, and we can see that sort of malicious spin coming in here as well if we're not careful. What hope do they have? I don't think they've got much, and what we want to see is some fairness. We want to see some Australian decency being brought into this. This should not be about bashing small business. This should be about encouraging growth and employment at a time that we're coming off a very severe downturn over the last 12 to 18 months. But unfortunately...
Scott, the unions argue that the fairness and the decency is of paying those double-time rates and those extra penalties on the weekends, on Sundays, when people don't necessarily want to work and they want to be with their family.
Well, this is the same group of unions that have been actually pushing for extensions of trade times, etc., over the last few years, and it's the same ACTU that has made, under their current president, made some absolutely damning and outrageous comments about the supposed vindictive nature of small business and the push towards big business and industrialised workplaces. So I don't think we can read into too much of a genuine argument coming from the union movement on this one.
Scott, thanks a lot for talking to us this afternoon.
It's a pleasure, thank you.
Scott Driscoll, National Executive Director of the Retailers Association. It's 19 to 6, coming up soon on Summer Drive. We're going to find out who was the sculpture unveiled at the Sydney Cricket Ground this afternoon. First though, this is Paul